So you're thinking about moving to Vegas and you want to know a little bit more information on how it's like to live here. Well, I got 5 pros and 5 cons, but you kind of want to stay tuned to the last one because I think it's something that people mostly overlook. So we're going to get started right away with the cons. And there's not a lot of cons to living in Vegas, to be honest. But I'm going to say this one can be kind of a pro and a con, but we're going to list this one under cons. And that's people coming to visit you. Obviously, everybody likes to come see Las Vegas. They come for the world-class entertainment, the food, the atmosphere. There's lots of shows here, lots of music, things to do. And when you come here and you live here, what you'll notice is you'll see an immediate uptick in the people who want to come visit you, whether it be family and friends. People come out of the woodwork, people you never even talked to in years, that you forgot all about these people. They'll magically find a way to decide to come visit you. And that's good in certain cases. In other cases, when you're trying to just work and live your regular life with your family, it can be constant interruptions of people wanting to come visit. But if you figure out a way to mitigate that, like one of the things I do is I just don't go to the airport anymore. If you want to come visit me, then cool. We'll set up a time for you to come to me. That kind of helps mitigate some things. Also, I try to not go to the Strip, but you will be tour guide. That's just part of the deal when you live in Las Vegas. But that's going to lead us right into the first pro on this list, and that's off-strip fun. And while I don't go to the Strip a lot, and most of the people who live in Las Vegas, we don't go to the Strip that often, there's a lot of things to do off the Strip. There's water parks. There are outdoor activities you can do, such as hiking. We have a lot of trails here. There's boating. There's Lake Las Vegas, just right outside of the city. We have a close proximity to Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon. Actually, you can take a helicopter tour from Vegas to the Grand Canyon. And of course, Southern California has a close proximity as well. But within the city, there are restaurants, many restaurants you can go eat. I think Vegas has some of the best food out of all the cities I've been to. And I think part of it is a result of the Strip. But I think the competition from the restaurants and establishments on the Strip kind of force the local restaurants to up their game, and they definitely compete. So if you have a type of cultural food that you like, whether it be seafood, Chinese food, we like pho, we like Korean barbecue, you can find all these things off the Strip. I'm talking about food a lot, but there's also things like escape rooms, there's concerts. Every little community has kind of its own hotel, casino, resort. So they also host, whether it be comedians or concerts, live music, things like that. So you can get that world-class entertainment without ever having to go to the tourist-heavy areas of town. And that's going to lead us right into con number 2, the transient style of community that we have in Las Vegas. There's definitely more than places I've lived before, and I've lived on the East Coast. I've lived in Seattle and in LA. Out of all those places I've lived, definitely Las Vegas has the most transient community. You make friends, you get to know people. They're coming in and out of town. It's kind of like a crossroads in a way, where people come in and out from LA. They come in and out from the American South. It's kind of definitely a place where people don't, you can come across a lot of people who don't put footing down. But if you know where to look, you're definitely going to get, you can get some community. There's a lot of locals and who have been here decades and generations even. And some of the people I've met in Summerlin and the areas that a lot of my friends tend to frequent, they have people who have been here forever, really. And some, in some cases, haven't even left the city. And why would you really need to? You have everything that you could possibly want here. So that's going to lead me into the second pro, which is the quality of living. I'm going to I did make a cost of living video, and you can check that one out after this one if you want more of a detailed, in-depth analysis of how much it actually costs to live in Las Vegas. But for this point, I'm just going to highlight the quality of living here is very high, in my opinion. You can do a lot with a little in Las Vegas, meaning that, well, where I lived before, Seattle and Los Angeles most recently, everyone knows Los Angeles is a very expensive city, especially compared to a place like Las Vegas. But not even just that, the quality that you get in Las Vegas tends to be higher. For instance, I didn't want a house with a pool because I frankly don't know anything about pools, and yes, I can swim, but it's not something that I'm really particularly into. And definitely I heard stories about the upkeep of pools being difficult. Well, when I was looking for homes, it just turned out that the home that we ended up purchasing had a pool, and this was happenstance. And those type of things don't happen in most major cities, that you just happen to get a place with a pool or other amenities that you weren't necessarily looking for, but they just come almost standard with the quality of life here in Las Vegas. A lot of people have pools. This is nothing special here. Whereas if I were to go to LA, where I was living was a studio apartment for basically the cost of the mortgage that we have on our home here. My name is Omar Willis, and I'm a realtor in the Las Vegas area. If you're even thinking about moving to Las Vegas, if you have any questions, I can help you out. You can give me a call or email me. All my information is in the description box below. So for con number 3, I'm going to talk about the public transportation in Las Vegas. This can be hit and miss. Some people have said that it's great. Some people say it's not so great. I've lived in places that I believe were a lot better than the public transportation that we have here in Vegas. It really becomes a problem when you think about the fact that you absolutely need a car in Vegas. And we have a good beltway, and the streets are actually designed to help you get around easier. They're in alphabetical order generally, from north to south, and there's a nice beltway which there's very nice homes along the entire perimeter of the beltway actually. In addition to that, there are very nice areas off of the beltway, of course, but my point here is that you absolutely need a car to get around the city. I don't know anyone who actually is actively working in and out of Las Vegas who can get around or does get around relying solely on public transportation. Of course, this is like the main way to do it in certain East Coast cities, and even LA that gets a bad rap for its public transportation, I think unjustly, because it does have a subway system. Most people don't even know that LA has a train system that is pretty good. I used to catch that thing when I used to go to USC. And so here, though, we don't have that type of thing. So you definitely want to make sure you have a car that gets good gas mileage. That's definitely going to be a plus. That's going to bring us to our next pro, actually, which is the traffic. The traffic here is basically non-existent. Well, I'll say this. It takes you generally, on the bad side of things, it could take you about 30 minutes to get from one side of town to the other side. And if you're going to insist upon driving up and down Las Vegas Boulevard, yeah, that can take you a little bit, and that's some of the worst traffic in the city, but that's relative, you know? So if you're thinking about someplace like Seattle or Los Angeles, it might take you an hour to go 5 miles. Here, you can go, an hour will take you, almost like a third of the way to LA. You can really get far in Las Vegas in a short amount of time. And I have friends all over the city. We zip back and forth, seeing each other. It takes like 15 minutes a time. And it's really not hard at all to navigate the city. The lanes are generally wider than I've seen in a lot of major cities. There can be a lot of construction because it's a growing market. So there are streets that they are expanding and communities that they are growing on the outskirts of Vegas specifically. But we have very low times that there's traffic here, and you're not going to get yourself into that bumper type situation. Most likely. In fact, I have videos that you can see after this one where I actually show you the traffic on the freeway and the traffic in the neighborhood. So you don't even have to take my word for it. You can actually just look at those video tours of the neighborhoods and see that there's just generally no cars on the street. And I do this in the daytime too. So you don't have to compare it to, say night when most people don't drive in a lot of cities. But no, this is in the daytime. The streets are empty. It's easy to navigate. And I personally think it's a better situation than most places that you can go. On this channel, we talk about all things Las Vegas. If that's something that's interesting to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button and make sure the notification bell's on so you're notified every time I drop a new video. Okay, so for our next con, it's the obvious one, and it's the heat. The heat in Vegas, well, I'll just try to give you some actual numbers. When I first got here, it was in the hundreds, and most of the time it was above 110 for about a good month. And that's very hot. I don't care if it's people tell you it's a dry heat, if it's lacking humidity. That's a very high temperature, especially considering when we first got here, our AC went out. And that is, I can tell you, you definitely want to plan for something like that. I wish that we had come with additional AC units, but when we came, we had the new house and everything seemed like it was going to be okay. And you generally want to set your thermostat not to as low as you desire it, because when it's that hot, sometimes it can overwork the system. So we set it to something, I want to say mid 70s, which to me is kind of hot. I like it about 65. I know that's cold for some people, but that's generally my preference. That being said, we set it for the high 70s, and the AC blew out. We lost, we didn't have air conditioning for about 3 days as we got it replaced. In the interim, we did go to Home Depot and get the AC floor units, but it took several stores because they were sold out, because apparently this is a thing that happens very often during that time of the year. We came in midsummer, I want to say it was June, but this happened in July. So you definitely want to prepare for the heat. Make sure you have a water machine. We have two, one on our fridge and then a separate filtration system. You definitely want to stay hydrated, and definitely want to understand that this is because this phenomenon is something that happens here. Like often it's a desert. We're all used to it. They actually created a whole community around this type of thing. When you go to everywhere in Vegas, it's always air conditioned. Restaurants, casinos, there's all these public places that you can go, which would be kind of like the equivalent of going to parks in most major cities, where you're going to places indoors that have, like, say, play structures for the kids. They can play, and this place is air conditioned, and a lot of places are free. Some places cost a little bit of money, but there's countless activities you can go. Like I said before, there's a lot of places that have pools. Some charge a fee to get in. Some are free if you live in certain communities. And of course, there's the two water parks that we have in addition to Lake Las Vegas. So there's options to stay out of the heat. And honestly, if you know how to do it and you live in Vegas for a little bit, you'll start to understand that the heat's not really a problem. It actually is something we use to our benefit, which is going to lead me to my next pro, and that's 300 days of sun. In Vegas, you can do so many things outside, and it is because it generally does not rain here. We have very heavy monsoons in the summertime, and that's kind of sporadic. It's not like there's a rainy season, but it's more like flash storms and sometimes lightning storms. But you're not going to get heavy rainfall here. You can get flooding occasionally when we do have those heavy downpours. This is something I want to say it happens every few years. You can do more research on that, but I haven't seen any flooding since I've been here, and very little rain. But you can do all those activities outside because of that. And it even at night is very pleasant here. We're talking in the 70s. You can hang out by a nice fire. You can hang out with your friends by the grill. It's always grilling season in Vegas, really. And if you have a balcony, if you have a porch, you'll see people always hanging out by pools. And this is something I wasn't able to do this in Seattle. I know that for sure. So even in LA, it was sometimes you can do it, but the humidity of a place like LA compared to Vegas is very different. So when you're living in a place that gets that kind of heat, it feels a little different than the Vegas heat. When you're living in a place like LA that can get scorching as well, and especially in the summertime, especially if you live in the valley, then you know that there's a difference between the LA valley heat, even if it's in the high 90s, low hundreds, compared to Vegas in the 110. So that's going to lead me to my last con of living in Las Vegas, or at least on this list. But like I said, most of them aren't cons, but this is the one that I think people always overlook, and it's the dryness. Yes, this kind of comes with the heat, but it's not exactly that. I want you to think of a place with zero humidity and think to yourself, okay, well, maybe that is a problem when it's hot, but actually it's okay when it's hot. It's when it's cold. It's when it can get to 50 degrees here at night in the winter. There's been a couple times I've been here, it snowed at night. Nothing heavy, very light coating, but it did snow. Usually though, when throughout Vegas, it's generally dry. So you're going to have to use lotion. You're going to have to break out the cocoa butter. You know, you're going to definitely need to stay hydrated. You're going to definitely need to pay attention to how it affects your body, your skin, your nose, your sinuses. Everything is different when you're living in that lack of humidity. And that goes for inside as well as outside. If you prepare for it, though, and take those cautionary steps, like I told you, staying hydrated and having water machines, things like that, then you can mitigate that and just kind of learn to live with it. But when people first start coming to Las Vegas, I tend to see that is the thing that they are surprised about the most. The laid back people. I think this city has some of the most laid back people. Some people call it the ninth island, referring to the Hawaiian Islands. And I think that is a very fitting name because most of the places I go here, grocery store, you can go get an oil change, and you'll notice that people want to start a conversation. They are relaxed. They don't seem stressed or in a hurry. And most of the places I lived, they're kind of those metropolis rat race kind of places. And Las Vegas just really doesn't have that. Outside of the strip, you're going to feel like it's almost a small town. This is a big city with a small town feel. That's what I always say when I describe Vegas to people, because it doesn't have a high pressure atmosphere. I think that's the best way to describe it. And I think that is probably why the quality of life here is so great. So I hope the information in this video can help you out. If you're looking for more information about Las Vegas, click one of the videos on the screen that make the most sense to you.